In today's video, if you've ever wondered how to communicate your needs, your fears to a dismissive avoidant attachment style as an anxious, preoccupied person, and vice versa, wondered how to communicate to your anxious, preoccupied partner as a dismissive avoidant person, we are going to talk about 5 things you can do on each side of the relationship. So if you're AP or DA, to dramatically improve the communication between you and yourself of somebody with a totally different attachment style. And I would use these 5 tools to remember and sort of anchor yourself into communication if you find yourself struggling or in a place where you may, with a romantic partner, friendship, family relationship, be on the rocks with somebody of a different attachment style. So we'll start with some really powerful tips if you're anxious, preoccupied. If you're in this typical anxious avoidant trap and you are anxiously attached, trying to get heard, trying to get seen, trying to be able to share yourself with your dismissive avoidant partner in a way that they understand, these are the first of 5 things that you can do. Number 1, when you go to communicate, sometimes dismissive avoidants feel a little bit triggered by too much emotion because they're trying to keep their own emotion repressed. And if you are too emotional, it makes them feel their own feelings. And so they try to push their feelings back down. And as a means of doing that, they may try to leave or escape the situation that's making them feel too much. And so as the AP, when you're trying to communicate, one of the best things you can first do is make sure that you are as regulated as possible. It's going to dramatically increase your chances of getting seen and heard and understood by your partner. If you can pair that with number 2, being as factual as possible and straight to the point, that also goes a long way. So I'll give you an example of this. Rather than going in when you're in the heat of the moment saying, oh my gosh, I'm so upset, I feel, and really expressing too much emotion, instead saying, hey, I'm upset by what happened earlier. I'm feeling like I really need some reassurance. And when you can say it that way and you can just insert the feeling, insert the need, matter of fact, straight to the point in like one sentence, dismissive avoidance, it actually appeals to that logical side of the DA where they tend to think about their feelings through thinking rather than through feeling. And so that will actually land with them. And this would be one of the first things I would teach couples when I was working with them, because they would actually be able to really make some huge strides in communicating with one another in this way. The third major thing is if you can make sure that you clarify for a dismissive avoidant when you need something, that it doesn't have to be right now. And number 4, I'm going to put these 2 together as well. It doesn't have to be perfect. Dismissive avoidants, unfortunately, they tend to assume, there's a huge DA pattern. They tend to assume when somebody's saying, hey, can you take a turn doing the dishes? They think, they tend to read into it and think it means right now, and it means it better be perfect. It better be done perfectly, and you better never forget. And there's this inherent pressure they feel around this idea of meeting somebody else's needs. When you say something instead where you're like, hey, when you get a turn sometime this week, or when you get a chance sometime this week, can you please take a turn doing the dishes? And if you forget, I'll remind you. So, there's this element of it's not right in the moment, right at this instance. And there's also this like, hey, you don't have to be perfect at remembering everything, but I will still advocate for myself and let you know if I still need something and you did forget. And you can still have discussions to say like it would be beneficial and helpful for me if you would remember without me having to remind you. Like that can be a discussion later on, but it allows this person to actually make positive emotional associations to doing the task because they're like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. I've got time to do it. And then you can always see your needs through as necessary, or you can time box it, right? Like if you're struggling for somebody to remember, you can say, hey, you do these Tuesday, Thursdays in the evening. I'll do the Monday, Wednesdays, right? So you can have like a structure or schedule if you need to. But dismissive avoidants listen when they're being communicated to in that way. When they're being told, and this is number 5, which is a huge point, when they're being communicated to in the negative, so they're told you never do the dishes rather than, hey, can you please take a turn doing the dishes? I could use some support. That's where they don't hear you. They tend to take the negativity as criticism. They feel shamed and they shut down as soon as they feel shame. And so if you communicate in the negative, you're going to be unheard. If you can communicate proactively about what you're needing in a positive form, like, hey, I could use some help. Do you mind XYZ doing the dishes? That's where it's likely to land. And I would say bonus tip number 6 is to make positive emotional associations when you see change. So to say, hey, I noticed you did the dishes yesterday. Thank you. Just to positively reinforce these behaviors I find that positive reinforcement goes such a long way with dismissive avoidance, and they tend to feel like, you know, there's this element of feeling acknowledged and seen, and it tends to, create more of this positive momentum in terms of the behaviors. Now, on the flip side, if you are a DA and you're trying to communicate to your anxious partner, here are some things that dismissive avoidance need. By the way, if you want to do a really big deep dive into all of this, I actually have a course all about how to thrive in the anxious, preoccupied, dismissive avoidant relationship. It has all sorts of tips and tools and slides and all kinds of stuff in there. And you can check it out for free for 14 days, just for a limited time, using the link down below. And you just enter into the dashboard. You'll see all of the courses. You get access to everything. And you can just type in DAAP relationship. It will pop up. You can dive right in. So as a DA, when it comes to communication specifically, a couple of things that go a very long way with your AP partner. Number one, make sure that when your AP partner is triggered, you validate their feelings. Okay. So if your AP partner is really triggered and you're trying to like kind of get out of the conflict or don't want to have the conflict, if you just say something like, hey, I can see that you're upset and I understand why, or I would like to understand why. If you can like validate or ask questions if you don't understand, APs feel seen and heard. And what happens is I've had so many discussions over the years with people saying, oh, my AP partner, they keep bringing stuff up from the past. People bring things up from the past because they didn't feel properly heard and resolved the first time. And so when you can validate and actually understand and see them, it actually creates a lot of like calm within that kind of conflicting dynamic where they can feel much more calm, much more secure, much more reassured by the understanding that you have. And it makes any potential conflict go from something that can really drag out and changes it into something that can be really simple. So if you can, when you're communicating with them, validate their feelings and try to empathize with what they're experiencing, it helps them feel resolved in that area. And then they feel much more calm and they can participate in the conflict in a much healthier way. Number two, if you're communicating a problem or a need that you have that could go against their need, so a need for space, pair it with reassurance. If you're like, hey, I'm really happy with our relationship. I need a little space, tomorrow night. I'm going to do my own thing instead because I just need to recharge and that's how I best recharge. But trust me, I'm really happy with us. I love you and I care about you, or if you aren't that close to somebody, you're just dating them. You can say, but I'm really, happy with how things are going, for example. Then in doing that, they can much better hear and understand your needs because they're not seeing your needs as a threat to their needs. They're seeing like, okay, we're good. I'm not going to be abandoned. So yes, if I know I'm not going to be abandoned, I can gladly hold space for your needs. So that's the second major one. The third one is to validate your partner as much as you can. So there's sort of this idea of a sandwich approach where when you have something that you need to bring up or don't like, if you can start with like a small compliment and end with a small compliment. And I don't mean like make things up out of thin air. I mean, say things that are sincere. So if you can be reinforcing and validating when you're communicating something, not just reassuring as sort of a separate note, like we just said, but actually like reinforcing or sharing a compliment or something you notice about them or appreciate about them, and then share what it is that your trigger is or your problem is, and then wrap it with something nice at the end. This tends to be very, very valuable. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you feel a little bit criticized in the relationship as a DA. You might start by saying something like, hey, I want to start by letting you know I appreciate how much you do in our relationship. And I notice for me sometimes as the DA, or pretending, I notice sometimes for me that when you communicate to me, it lands for me as criticism. And I think I would better hear you if you could be a little more mindful in your approach. Now, with that being said, I really appreciate you and I'm glad that like we can talk openly this way. How does that feel for you? So you're saying something sincere and kind in both ends, but you're still saying exactly what it is that's bothering you. It's just softening it. So it tends to go a very, very long way. And then another big approach that's very valuable is to ask your AP partner to be present if they are seeing your behavior through the lens of their fears. So sometimes APs, it's one of the only places they really do this. They lose their ability to be present with their partner when they're triggered because they come so strongly through their sense of panic and fear of being abandoned that in that moment they lose sight of being able to really see their partner and what the partner's experiencing. And it can leave a DA feeling unseen and kind of invalidated or misunderstood. And then the DA just closes down and shuts off. Instead, if you have something you need to bring up and you feel like it's not being heard, I would really encourage you as the avoidant person to say, hey, I feel like you're not seeing or hearing my side. I know that you feel stressed right now, but I need you to be present to try to understand me too. And that will make huge strides for the person to kind of come out and realize, oh, I'm not empathizing with you right now because I'm so triggered. And it can create more space for them to be able to do that. And last but not least, make compromises with your AP partner. So don't be afraid to communicate compromises like, hey, I'll work on being more present with you if you are cool with me having some alone time Sunday afternoon. And when you can communicate about things in that way, there won't be this constant idea that it's like we either have time together or time apart, and it feels like there's a war for one or the other all the time. Like one person warring for more time together, the other person trying to get more time apart. And both parties can realize we have different needs as human beings because of our programming, but we can feed into each other's in healthy ways. And instead of it being this like war for trying to have, your needs met, there's this healthy exchange that's happening where it's like, hey, you're going to be more present. We're going to have a fun date on Friday. And then Saturday morning, you're going to go take time to yourself. So doing that allows for this exchange where it doesn't feel like your needs are mutually exclusive. So these are a lot of tips and communication tools. I have a whole course that I mentioned that goes way deeper. It goes into communication, wounds, triggers, how to actually work through triggers together. Like there's so many components to that course. Again, you can check it out for free for 14 days for a really limited time using the link down below. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want more content about relationships specifically and each party in the relationship, hit the like button. I'm using it as a voting system. You can see, I'll see like what you're voting on the most, and I'll make more content accordingly. And if you have questions or comments, please leave them down below. I'd love to hear from you. And I hope you consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to this channel in the future. Thank you for watching.